So you're thinking about freelancing, but you're finding it all pretty overwhelming. You can't do it all on your own, but what if you didn't need to hire a developer or an SEO expert or a project manager just to run your freelance business? What if you already had all the skills that you needed? What if you just needed to find the right tools? So today we're digging into how designers can stop relying on others and start scaling themselves on their own terms. So stick around and you'll hear how smart freelancers are replacing specialized skills with specialized tools and building a thriving business in the process. What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome. I am super stoked to have you. Have you picked up your paperback copy of Beyond UX Design, Master Your Craft Beyond Pixels and Prototypes? Unlock the secrets of UX success and learn all the things they didn't teach you in school. Get free shipping on all orders over $30 and use the code LISTENER to get 10% off your entire order. Just head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/book to learn more. How often do you stare at a blank Figma canvas, unsure where to start? Well, this episode is brought to you by Mobbin, the ultimate UI and UX design inspiration library. Mobbin gives you instant access to over 400,000 beautifully designed UI and user flows from apps you love, and content is added weekly, so you never have to start from scratch again. Quickly find exactly what you need, search by app category, UI patterns, or even specific features. And my team and I use Mobbin daily at work to find useful patterns, and it helps my team work much more efficiently. And honestly, I can't imagine kicking off a new feature without Mobbin. So are you ready to level up your design process? Visit mobbin.com/beyondux to get 20% off Mobbin Pro today and never run out of inspiration again. And if you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are a regular here and you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. That'll help me out so much more than you can imagine. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, Tino, Adina, and Zoe for all their support. And if you want to join these fine folks and many others and help keep the show independent and ad-free, you'll get exclusive access to the entire video library of episodes, including episodes before they're even released. Get instant access to those videos right now for as little as $5 a month. And for more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. And of course, if you think the show is worth sharing, then I would love it if you told some friends. So most designers, they go freelance and they think they'll just design, but they quickly realize that they also have to be marketers, salespeople, collection agents, project managers, and so much more. And today, tools like Wix Studio, shout out sponsor Wix Studio, reshaping what's possible, and you don't need to hire a developer, an SEO expert, or a content strategist to run a professional freelance business. So today I've got Maciej Konarzewski on the show. Maciej relocated to the UK 2 decades ago after spending time in the traditional 9-to-5 world. He realized that it wasn't the right fit, and he decided to make a change. And what started as a side hustle quickly became Vision Marketing, a thriving business that he built from the ground up. And today, Maciej runs his company full-time, helping clients grow their strategic, no-fluff marketing. And outside of work, he's a dedicated family man who loves to travel and explore new places whenever he can. Maciej, welcome to Beyond UX Design. How is it going, man?
Hello, pleasure to be here.
Right on. Since you're from Poland, I'm gonna practice some of my Polish skills, if you don't mind. Jak się masz? So słychać. Cześć. Kanapki, how's it going?
That's very good.
I love it. I got a good friend of mine, Aneta Kmiecic. I don't know if you know her from LinkedIn, but she's a UX designer. She's originally from Poland. And she always makes fun of me about how terrible my Polish is. But moving on, trochę po polsku, a little bit. Man. I had Duolingo going for a little while. Maciej, so welcome to Beyond UX Design. I am so excited to have you on. Something that I have experienced firsthand myself. I used to do freelance a long time ago before I got into UX design. And one of the things that I realized early on was design is only like one very small part of the actual work. And you've got to do things like sales and collections. Collections was the worst part for me, actually. Getting people to pay their bill when it was over. I hated that. But I really am excited to get you on today and talk about how you are using tools to supplement all of those skills that frankly, as freelance designers, we don't really need to be able to be successful, skillful designers, but we do need them to run a business, and we can find tools that help us do that. So I'm excited to have you on. So tell us a little bit about your journey, man, and how'd you get from design? You got an interesting backstory where you're working for your wife and it turned into your business today, but I'd love to hear a little bit about that, and tell us how you get into freelance and realize that, hey, I can find tools to help me succeed. I don't need to hire somebody to do everything.
Yeah, cool. So there's always something big that needs to happen for the life to change. And for us, for me and my wife, it was when our son Jamie was born. And when we were both stuck in 9 to 5s with little flexibility of what we do and when we do it. So yeah, we were trying to juggle newborn baby, bills, moving houses and stuff like that. I had an idea that if we put all the efforts and dedication into something we want to do ourselves, what could possibly go wrong? So researched what could we do that would give us a little bit more independence. I wanted to see, because my background is in marketing and I did Google ads and SEO, that kind of stuff, current employment. So I had a little bit of a marketing background to back me up. I researched online how to build a website and what does it take to build one. There were a couple of contenders, but back then the most popular was, I think it was Wix, prominently, I don't know, targeted me with ad or something like that. And okay, let's have a go. And within a week, I managed to build just a simple landing page for a cleaning company. Then hooked up some Google ads, did some SEO, targeted some local houses in a clever way that they had to be on their way to the nursery to drop the kid off and not be outside. So like clever targeting. And like £50 later and a couple of leads came through and the calendar got full. And I was like, okay, many people struggle with that kind of stuff. And it's like near to impossible if you don't have any expertise. So I thought if that filled the calendar for my wife to quit her 9 to 5 job and get her independence back doing her own business, I could do it for someone else who struggling with the same things, like want to become independent, like small business, trying to start the business. And you're more likely to be expert in what you do rather than in websites and SEO and things like that. I was a little bit lucky that I had a little bit of marketing background, etc. So yeah, gave me a confidence, and I explored. Like I say, okay, so maybe I'll do website for myself as well. And I did it. I did another one on Wix. Again, it was like some template and few things that I came up with. And it was real skill back then. No chat GPT, no anything to write a copy. So it had to be a real thing. So yeah, I did that. Obviously, it was much harder for me to get leads, but my first client was like, I was having a haircut in a local barbershop and oh, do you need a website? And he said, yeah. I said, okay, but
Always be selling, man.
yeah, man, I mean, I sold my first website while having a haircut. So that was the first one, and then another one, and then another one, and rolled into a business, into a side hustle, taking more time. Yeah, no, at the beginning, there were like long days and long nights, like 14 hours. When you becoming a business owner, you think, okay, now I have my freedom. So instead of working for 8 hours, I'm going to work.
Yeah, but you're working for yourself.
Yeah.
So I love that. So I want to hear a little bit about your experience. I don't know if this happened to you, but this certainly happened to me. Like I said, when I started doing freelance, I thought, oh, I'm going to do the design and all that stuff. And then I quickly realized that there's 1,000 other things. But I'm curious, when you started out your own company, Vision Marketing, what kind of stuff did you realize that you had to do that you didn't really expect? And then I'd love to talk about what kind of stuff did you use to outsource that you eventually found tools for, or apps or something that you could then leverage those things so that you didn't actually have to rely on other people. Was there anything that you started to initially pay a bunch of money to outsource people to do?
Well, eventually I was like trying to do everything myself. And when you like realize, oh yeah, I like design, I like marketing, I'm going to do it. And then you become like your accountant, you becoming your media company, you know, everything else but what you wanted to become. And then you realize, oh, okay, that's what it is, running the business. It's not doing what you meant to do. It's everything else to make it work. So I think the first one I outsourced was definitely the books and accounting, because I actually hated it. I just started to get rid of everything I hated it to not kill my passion for what I'm meant to be doing. Then started using platforms like Fiverr, people per hour, just to help me out when it became busy. But I got burned a lot on those platforms. Not the platform's fault, like getting the right people in the right with the right mindset to work with you. Then quickly realized that there is a big back then it was like a huge Wix community where I could tap in on Facebook, speak to people within the same community that were using the platform. So quickly I've managed to make some strategic relationships where I met amazing brand designer who did one of the most amazing logos that we produced was with help of Matt Law Design. That's a long-term relationship we have actually. Then I've met some great developers that we're working on some crazy projects. So yeah, I've only managed to do on my own for so long, and then community and good relationships help me to scale and to become better at what I do.
Yeah, because that's the thing I found early on. And it's funny you mentioned accounting was the first one that you outsourced. When my wife and I, we had our own agency that we did similar kind of stuff back in the day. We did WordPress more than anything, which WordPress was a headache in and of itself 10, 15 years ago. WordPress has gotten a lot better now, but it's still, I don't know. It's not a site I would necessarily recommend to people today. But anyway, we used to do WordPress sites and we did themes and templates and stuff like that. But that was the first thing that we outsourced was bookkeeping
Yes.
and accounting because I was like, this is not at all. And I don't know, you're in the UK, so I don't know what taxes are like. I imagine taxes are probably a lot easier with VAT and all that stuff than it is in the United States, where we have income tax and you get discounts for this and you can whatever tax cuts and credits and all this stuff. And figuring that out as a designer to me was so hard. I honestly have never really looked into, speaking of tools, what is one? The like accounting software, like TurboTax and things like that. I don't know. I guess in the UK, is it a lot easier or in Europe for taxes and stuff? I don't know what that's. We don't have to get into it. But
Well,
maybe.
from what I heard, it's way much easier
Yeah.
comparing to different, because you got like a different states and different sections,
Yeah.
and you pay tax here and there and everywhere.
Yeah, it's insane.
Well, one
But
thing
yeah,
in
anyway.
common is that you got to pay it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you got to pay it. So anyway, it's funny you mentioned outsourcing that. But again, thinking about tools and stuff, like this is something I would encourage people to think about is like, you don't have to necessarily be the accountant. If you pull in tools like TurboTax, for instance, in the United States, I'm sure there's similar stuff in Europe. Just keeping up with it is sometimes a challenge, but you don't have to wait. Maybe that's another smart lesson too. It's like waiting until the end of the year when you have to file your taxes. Waiting until that day, it's going to be so much harder than if you do it. But what's interesting, like stuff like TurboTax and QuickBooks and things like that, QuickBooks is a little different, but TurboTax, you don't have to pay until you file. So it's not one of the things that I was always worried about as a freelancer was like paying for this, paying for that, paying for this, paying for that. And then all of that kind of eating into my profits, which is nice with something like TurboTax. Maybe you're going to get a tax credit so it covers the cost of that. But anyway, I don't know. That's just something like for me, like the stress of dealing with accounting and stuff was so huge. It like actually kept me from being a better designer, I think. When you mentioned something really interesting, that finding the right people to help you allowed you to focus on the things that you were also good at. And this is something like I think a great lesson that everybody listening should take away from this is find the tools, find the people that you can offload the things you don't want to do so that you can focus on being a better whatever it is you want to do, whether that's design or research or hell, even maybe even sales. Find a designer so you can focus on sales. I think that's such a smart lesson. I don't know if you have any other additional thoughts there, but that to me is like a huge takeaway.
Well, it is a good takeaway. And it's a scary one as well. It's a learning curve because it's always, I don't know, for me, it was always like handing over your baby to somebody to get it looked after, trusting somebody with their design acumen or with their code, etc. So it's always a little bit scary for me. But now we're entering the area where it's tempting to do everything yourself again with all the tools and chat GPTs and AI robots and things like that. And yeah, it's an interesting area that we're entering because back then it sounds like ages ago, but you had to have some good relationships and some trusted people around you to
Yeah.
get by, I think.
Yeah. So I was actually going to talk about that a little bit later, but now that you mention it, it might be something worth chatting about and getting into is the idea that the tools can actually empower you to do a lot of things, but pitfall there, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, what happens when you think those tools mean you can do everything? And then you end up, like you mentioned, 16-hour days, getting burnt out because you're trying to do it all instead of hiring somebody or finding another thing to help you out. I would love to hear your thoughts there. What is the downside of these tools? You mentioned ChatGPT, stuff like that. Tell me a little bit about that, because I'd love to hear your experience there.
Well,
Relying
I
too
think
much
the
on doing it all
biggest
yourself.
biggest downside for it, in my opinion, and for me, is it's entering the huge rabbit hole as it's hard to get out. Like instead of working on a business aligned with your goals and what you wanted to do, what you desired to do, what you planned to do at the beginning of the year or the month or the quarter, you're like finding this new amazing tool that does it all, and you accidentally click the ad on TikTok that takes you to this amazing tool that makes all the videos and pictures and content and stuff like that. 8 hours later, like you didn't do any work. You realize like those videos or those pictures are actually not what you expected and not what it was. And at some point, you capacity of learning everything extinguish, and you have to stick to what you know and what you're good at. And going into X amount of rabbit holes with those tools, sometimes it is too much of a learning curve, and it's a distractions. And most of the times, it's a distractions rather than something that will serve your business. And many times, I learned that going into distraction area where there are lots of shining objects floating around, and it's Alice in the Wonderland kind of stuff. And no good, man, no good.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me to this idea, and this is something that you've done. We talked about this a while back when you and I first spoke, and I want to dig into this a little bit more. This idea of specialization. All these things you just mentioned, they're distractions, they're keeping you from getting really good at that one thing. Talk to me a little bit about your perspective here on finding a specialization, finding a niche as a freelancer, and how that's helped you become, in your case, Wix certified partner, and that's really allowed you to sell that. Tell me a little bit about that specialization piece and how that's benefited you, and maybe some advice that you have on other people on how to find out what that specialization, what that niche might be for them.
Well, it's always a little bit of a scary leap, unknown. Well, into the known, but it's like fear of missing out on everything else. And if someone like suffers from this type of behavior where you're running around chasing new things, getting specialized really helps. Why it's hard for me? It was hard because I thought, wow, okay, if I'm going to specialize in studio, if I'm going to go all in, what if I'm going to miss those WordPress leads or those Webflow designs opportunities or those branding or those SEO? And that kind of, I realized at some point, distraction, and just put your bets on one horse and run with it. And it will pay off with consistency and determination to be the best or one of the best or the leading within that niche. And I think at some point you realize you could easily help someone within this niche. Someone will perceive you as an expert because you have bulletproof portfolio, recognitions. You will talk about it. It's easy for you to generate content around this specific niche. And it's really helpful to actually overcome that fear of specializing something and becoming an expert and know one thing.
Yeah, I love that. So let me ask you this. You played around, or you're now a Wix certified partner, but I'm curious, did you play around with other specializations before that? Did you experiment a little bit? And if so, like, how did you craft that experiment or figure that out or trial and error? Did you have anything that you were trying to specialize in before and then it just totally failed? I'm curious what your experience was there.
I was always loyal to Wix. At the beginning day, when I did first started, did a couple of websites, there was like another certification for classic editor back then. And you actually had to pass loads of tests. It was like a university kind of exam thing where you have to design a website, submit it, get it reviewed and stuff like that. So that was the first time outside of school when I actually went all in to get this certification done, become 100% certified guy for this kind of platform. So I always was loyal, but there were leads coming in. Oh, do you do WordPress or do you do other platforms? Or can you do designs on Figma, stuff like that. And the power of saying no to these gives you a lot of freedom to pursue what you love and what you're good at. But at the beginning, I didn't have that power to say no. I was a yes man, still a little bit of a yes man as well. Every time I say yes, 80% is did it again. I shouldn't say yes. I should stick
Yeah.
to my guns.
Yeah. I love that. Until you've got like Jeff Bezos money, I think every business owner is scared of saying no because, especially like you got a wife, kids. I'm the same way, and sometimes it's like scary to say no. What happens if I don't get this opportunity again? What happens if this money goes away? But the power of saying no, like again, it's sort of those distractions. What's the value in building a WordPress site for you if you're selling the Wix Studio stuff like really hard, right? Like you're not going to want to put a WordPress site on your portfolio if everything else is like specializing in Wix, and it just muddies the portfolio, and then it gets confusing, and then you've got to like mentally manage, wait, I got to update this thing and that thing, I got to go here for that, I got to go here for this, and it just gets like overwhelming. The power of saying no, like you said, man, I still struggle with this. Lucrative opportunity comes along, does it really fit? I don't know, but what happens if I say no? I'm not going to get this opportunity again. How did you, I'm curious, like you mentioned this, and I'd love to get your thoughts in there, but is there some way you've practiced or gotten better over time, or maybe is there a method where you figure out how to say no more? I don't even know the right way to ask this question, to be honest, but like I feel like it's a muscle that you got to get really good at, like flexing over time. I'm curious, is there any way you maybe like exercise that to get better at saying no?
I think it would be hard to exercise it yourself. It's not a DIY thing because you're going against your limited beliefs, against your openness to the world. And you also I found like designers and creatives being always like a yes people, and then they struggle, right? With whatever they said yes to. So I, again, try to surround myself with people who've been there, done that, and I was looking up to. So I was like, binge drinking Gary V content and subscribing to The Future with Chris Doe. And I had some guys that I've been working with on my personal branding, like finding who I am, or what I want, and what's my kind of origin stories, and how does that affect how I think. It being emigrant for starters, it makes you that person who will say, yeah, yes, I can do everything. I need to constantly prove to everybody like I'm worth it. That was the past me. I realized it's not something that needs to happen every time, but that it's not the exercise. It's like just realizing of who you are. Maybe it comes with the age. I don't know.
It might be a little of that. I feel like I don't know how old you are. I'm 43. I feel like a little older and wiser now. I feel like more empowered to say no. And something that's interesting, and this kind of goes against maybe some of the things that we're talking about, but I'd love to get your thoughts here, is one of the things that I would maybe want to get your thoughts on here is this idea of putting all your eggs in one basket. And when you specialize, something that I would be concerned about, and I want to hear how you've overcome this, or maybe what the insurance is to keep this from happening. But having all your eggs in one basket, focusing on that one thing, how do you prepare yourself for the future if that one thing goes away? How do you set yourself up so that you don't have to struggle, you don't have to worry, you don't have to freak out because that source of income is gone? Do you have any thoughts there? Is there some way you're preparing for that?
Well, it's a tricky now, right? Me being natural overthinker made me realize that actually thinking about it preventing me from succeeding. And what comes to my mind when you ask that question is if you want to conquer the island, you got to burn the boats that you arrived in, right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
So
So
basically, you
Roman
either
had
go
conquered
for it,
Krishna.
win islands, win the
Yeah.
war, or there's no return. Yeah.
Interesting. It's an interesting way to put it too. Burn the boats, you can't go back. There's only one way, and it's forward. That's really interesting. It's funny because, like, for me, I've got podcast, I've got a full-time job, I've got a wife, kids. I'm doing like Cub Scout den leader, my youngest kid, parent association president. I've got the podcast. I've got like other stuff I do. Another thing I'm starting with another buddy of mine, and I often wonder, am I just making it harder for any of these things to succeed? Doing so many things. How do I get good at anything when I'm trying to do 1,000 things? And I don't know. It's one of those things. One of the reasons I got laid off from a full-time job, and I'm thinking putting all my eggs in that one basket and that one job didn't make sense because that job goes away. I have no control over it in the first place, right? As a full-time employee, someone wants to lay you off, they're going to lay you off. And so I was like, I need to diversify my income, get my eggs out of that one basket. And then what I realized was, how do I make any of these baskets profitable if I can't focus on one? So it's a weird paradox, and I don't know, it's interesting to get your thoughts on it, and I like the idea of just burning your boats and go one way forward. It actually reminds me, I don't know if, oh, goddamn, hold on, let me see, what's his name? The drummer for Blink-182. What is his name? Travis Barker. I don't know why I forgot that. Anyway, I was a huge Travis Barker fan. Anyway, Travis Barker, drummer for Blink-182, he got like neck tattoos and like face tattoos and all this stuff so that he couldn't get a full-time job like in the corporate world.
That's it.
So it was kind of, he's like, I gotta be a good drummer because I have to be a successful musician because I'm never gonna get a corporate job with all these face tattoos and like neck tattoos and stuff. And it's like same kind of mental model, I guess, is really interesting. I love that. I love that analogy though. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
You mentioned about you being laid off work, and in today's, well, I believe in my parents' like generation or a little bit below our generation, everyone was putting a job that you work for, where you work for somebody, is like the safest place on earth, and nothing can happen to it. And I don't think I've been laid off from work. I've been laid off once from Subway from being late. I didn't have a car back then, and like the buses were terrible, and kind of like, oh, we're not good enough. Goodbye. And I was doing some good freaking sandwiches there. But the hardest decision for me was like 10 years into a very good and well-paid job. Well, I wasn't happy, but that wasn't concern of mine. It was concern of everyone else around you. I wasn't happy. You need to change your job. I said, what do you mean to change your job? I don't want to change the job. I'm happy.
I'm happy, damn it.
Yeah. And it was the hardest decision in my life. Well, one of the hardest, to say, okay, those eggs going into that basket, no left in this one. And it was the hardest one. And I think there are eggs, there are baskets, and there is always you are your backup plan. Eggs in the baskets are just things that if they break, you're still alive, you're still sound, you're good, you can spin everything off. There's always an option. Having a choice in your head, at least like 1, 2, 3 choices to bulletproof.
Yeah, I love that.
For your own self, like kind of thing.
Yeah, you are your own backup plan. I think that's like what I realized, and I went off in 1,000 directions. But the idea, though, that like you're the only one who is going to focus on you. Corporate America, or corporate UK, I don't know, what do you guys say over there? Corporate Europe, they're not going to focus on helping Che be successful. They want to find a button a seat to pay them to do a thing, and that's it. And they will turn you loose as soon as they don't need you anymore.
100.
There's no loyalty anymore. The only person loyal to you is going to be you and your family.
Banger.
That's a great lesson, dude. I love that so much. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your experience with selling and marketing yourself and your services, because this is something that I think most designers are not very good salespeople. Some of them can talk and sell, and obviously you're really good at it. You sold your first website. But a lot of people are scared to talk about themselves. They feel like it's boasting and things like that. And I want to get your thoughts on selling as a freelancer and the challenges that you have faced and how you overcame that idea of selling. Talk to me a little bit about how you got to the point where you're able to grow this business and find the leads and do the sales while also doing the design.
The moment I realized that I can't sell, I need to help people. And it sounds, maybe sounds a little bit cheesy, but it took me a while. At the beginning, I was trying to always over deliver, always overcompensate, etc., etc. But with my circle of people, I surrounded myself offline and online. I said to myself, I need to learn how to sell and how to talk to people and resolve problems together. And it's like hard to start with, but there is a lot of learning, money, courses that do work, that don't work, practice. It's a good help that is needed. I don't think I could do it myself. I was reading loads of books from Gary Vaynerchuk, tuning into Tony Robbins and mindset things and getting lots of coaching. So it took me a lot of work to learn how to be myself and help people. It's such a simple thing, right?
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I love that you said like it took you a while to figure out you're not selling something, you're helping people. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people miss, like when they go to networking events and things like that. It's me, I need this, I need that, I need a job, I need a client, I need this. But it's making connections with people, finding people in being the connector and saying, well, I can't help you, but this person over here can, connecting people, and then you're giving back, and then someone's, oh, Maciej, yeah, he's got that thing. He's really good at it. Let me like holler at him. And then people start helping you, and it's helping clients. Obviously, you're not selling them something they don't need. They need a website, but also at the same time, they're trying to solve a problem. Like, why do they need a website? What is it? Are the sales down? Are they trying to market a specific thing? Are they trying to launch a new thing? And that's how you're helping them achieve that goal, as opposed to just like, hey, here's a website. And I think that's something really profound, is realizing that your job is not to sell, it's to help. And if you help, people are going to come to you. If you're the person that can help them, they're going to tell other people, oh, they helped me this, they helped me that. Look how amazing this thing was. And you've got your own little built-in salesman with happy clients because you've helped them. You didn't just sell them crap they didn't need.
Yeah, that's it. And the thing that is worth mentioning is like the mindset bit of it. Like I was always thinking, okay, if someone gets on the phone with me, they try to sell something, so I build like a big fence, and then I don't want it. But so someone said to me like, how you buy is how you sell, and I was like, shit. I'm always like, I never can be decisive enough. I never say quick yes and things like that. And I realized that kind of translated into my beginning of my poor, like selling, well, techniques or conversations. Let's call it like opportunities, conversations. And I realized if I flip my mindset and I try to be how I would like others to be with me when we do that, like really natural and upfront without, and it helps if you don't have to sell. If you're helping, it falls into the right area. But yeah, mindset is really important, and what you believe in is true. Is broadcast onto your customer or potential customer, and they reflect it back to you. So it's kind of, no one can.
Yeah, I love that. Well, let me ask you this. You mentioned reading all the books, courses, Tony Robbins, and reading all the Gary Vee books and things like that. Did you find any of those useful at all? I'm just curious. Or did you think they was just like fluff and kind of, I don't know, they're basically selling just to sell so they can make more money? I'm curious, was there any value in those things or any resources that you might recommend to people if they want some help with trying to figure out how to be a better salesperson?
I think there is always something that sticks. You read something, you participate in a course, and if you practice, it will come into fruition. If you manage to master it as your personal, how to say it, like authentic yourself, using those, not techniques, but like, don't forget, like I had to learn that in English, where Polish is my first language, and I didn't know English too much when I came over here. So it was like a crazy ninja task for me to get to know those things. But if I would recommend something that worked for me the most in terms of the selling, was definitely The Future Group by Chris Do. And his resources on YouTube, on things that, the amount of free stuff that he actually posted, and I was following him for ages. And the advice that he given to the designers, to motion designers, to people in creative industries, they were always like, wow, if one day I can talk like that, or I can at least articulate like that, it's going to work. And I made it happen. So I made to his event, and I met him in person. We had high five each other. And then I went to his sales event where we were learning how to conversational selling and things like that. So yeah, it was a big realization that it's not about selling. It's about listening. It's about trying to find the best solution that someone actually wants or need, rather than just what you want to put your agenda in front of it. Like,
I love that. So speaking of tools, any tools that you like that you found have been incredibly helpful that you maybe couldn't live without now that you started, like CRMs or something, like manage clients or sales calls, anything like that?
yeah, for sure. I love to record conversations and sales calls, and like actually combining this with some AI that can give you the feedback on how was the tone on the conversation, and getting those notes in place helps really with working on a proposal that actually lands well with what you discussed, etc. So that was a big one. And yeah, just overall, just using a lot of Gmail, YouTube. Obviously, Wix itself has a lot of tools that I don't need to pay for once I have a subscription with them. So it's invoicing, accounting, some lead generation tools, automations, email campaigns. I was never tuning into anything like MailChimp or others. I was always trying to use what Wix has to offer. And eventually I realized like, hey, business owners, if you want to run your business from one digital space and don't worry about this subscription, this and that, we can all combine it for you. I can help you set it up as I did for myself. And it worked brilliantly well.
That's awesome. I don't think I realized that Wix did all of that stuff. That's really good to know. Shout out Wix again, sponsor. Yeah, so that's really cool. One of the things you mentioned, AI for sales calls, something that a friend of mine does with his team. He's a salesperson at work, and they have a tool that can actually analyze to determine who on their team is talking versus the customer. And at the end, they'll go back and analyze the call. Like football players will watch the tapes, right? They'll watch their game over and analyze how they performed. And they'll say, we talked 50% of the time. We should have shut up and listened more. Next time we need to not talk so much. Or we asked this question, we should have worded it a different way. And it's really interesting to think about that and find those tools. Those are relatively new. AI is obviously enabling a lot of that. But that's really neat. Stuff like that I would have never even thought about before as a sales, well, I would say like pseudo salesperson, as a freelancer trying to do sales. Shut up and listen. Don't talk too much. Ask a question and shut up. Don't try to dominate the conversation. Let the customer talk. Most designers are never trained in sales, and having tools like that can help you get better without having to take a class or hire a salesperson. I think that's really good stuff. I love that, dude. All right, so Maciej, so we've had you for a little while now, man. Before we get out of here, I've got some questions I'd like to ask all my guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. But before we do that, any closing thoughts? Anything that we didn't get a chance to talk about that you want to make sure everybody listening takes away as it relates to this idea of empowering yourself, finding tools so that you don't have to do that work and focus on the things that you love?
Not sure where that should go.
You just like reiterate, be known for something, that idea of focusing on that one thing, well, in our last call, you mentioned just start. If you don't feel ready, just start. Stuff like that.
Key takeaways, like, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so if we consider being a freelance or a business owner for anything that is creative industry or more marketing related, I would say this market is crazily saturated with everybody, and it's going to be becoming more and more saturated going forward, because we mentioned about the expansion of AI and things get created really quickly and to the high quality. So I think we as business owners or as creatives, if we're not going to make our mark now as humans, and being on podcasts like that, or putting out some videos, or working on your personal brands, talking about your niche specifications, we are going to be just buried into those AI artificially generated noise that will put a big thick blanket. And the only way to stay above this big scary blanket is to get specialized, be known for what you want to be known and what you're passionate about. Because it's important. If you're not passionate about something, you're not going to be convincing people that you're the guy to listen to. Mastering the skills that really flows with you, and not being scared of niching down and becoming expert in one thing, because with great community and with the good people that you can surround yourself with, you can achieve a lot more than just trying to stay and stick being generalist and being semi-good at everything rather than master of one thing.
Yeah, I love finding your community. To me, that's so important. And that is important for so many reasons. It could be to help you with leads, but it could also just be to keep you motivated. It could be to pull you up when you're feeling down, or give you a path that you didn't even expect, you didn't know about, but opportunities that you might not have ever even gotten either. Like in your case, like Wix, as a certified Wix shop, you've got the opportunity, I would imagine, like partnering with Wix. I know you've spoken at some of their events and things like that. And that's, I'm sure, giving you a platform that you probably would have never gotten had you not become that partner and join that community, that Wix community. And so I think there's like a huge opportunity there for people to just, and again, not to sell, but just make friends, get to know the other people, other developers. It's like everybody, tide rises all ships. So you're not necessarily competing against every other Wix expert, right? You're probably all working together, and I'm sure you're sharing stories and sharing tips and things like that. And so there's such profound, I think, guidance in that idea of finding a community. For me, it's just so important, especially when everybody now is remote and you often don't leave your house for days at a time. Just having that community to talk to and share ideas with and stories and things like that, and to build relationships. I love that. I think that's a perfect parting advice, and it fits this podcast perfectly because we talk about the importance of relationships all the time. So, Maciej, I love that, man. All right. Well, thanks again. This is a brilliant conversation. I really appreciate you coming on. Before we get out of here, I've got 5 simple questions that I like to ask all my guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. First thing that comes to your mind, you don't have to take too long to think about it. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. First up, what is your favorite non-design book?
Start with why.
Ooh, I got that right here on my shelf, man. That's a great book. I love it. Simon Sinek, Start with Why, the golden circle and everything else. And I think especially like sales, like starting with the why and not the what. That's so good. Such a great book. I love that book. Awesome answer. All right. Next up, what is your favorite non-design podcast?
Ooh, it's going to be Drum Code. It's a musical techno podcast.
Oh, nice, dude.
Not
Drum
much
code.
of a talking, a lot of techno.
Oh, right on, dude. I love that. Okay. I love like different. I've never heard of a podcast like that with more like music than, but you get like episodes and they release it.
Yeah,
like
that's
weekly, I guess,
it.
but it's not like an album, right? That's really cool. I love that. Innovative ways to use podcasts and RSS feeds. All right. Next up, what is your favorite meal? This could be something you cook, something your grandma used to cook, something you had in a restaurant. Favorite meal?
It's going to be the steak.
Ooh, steak. How do you like it cooked? You like it grilled? You like it seared on like a cast iron?
Got to go on.
pan?
It's
There
going
you
to
go.
be prepared. It's going to be dry. It's going to be thick. It's going to go
Ooh,
on the
yeah.
barbecue. No pans, no gas hobs. It's got to be on the coals and
Yeah, I love it. Just like
proper
back
juicy.
to the primal cooking.
That's
What's your
it.
favorite side? You got a favorite side you like to pair with? Is it potatoes or something else?
Side for the steak, probably some chicken wings.
Steak with a side of chicken wings. I love that, dude. Nothing wrong with that. All right, that's the first time I've ever had anyone answer that question. That's really good. All right, next up, what is your favorite vacation spot? I'm always jealous of you guys out in Europe and all the places y'all can visit.
It's got to be Cuba.
Cuba, really? Right on, man. How many times have you been out to Cuba?
I got married in Cuba on the beach.
Oh, right on. Oh, that's
Just
so
two of
cool.
us. It was like crazy. And then been there another 2 times. So
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, unfortunately, as an American, I'm not allowed to go there. But it kind of makes me want to go even more, to be honest. But I've actually heard people go into Mexico or Canada and then to Cuba and roundabout way that way. But anyway, yeah, it looks beautiful, man. It's such a shame, too, because I'm originally from New Orleans. When it was only like 45-minute flight from New Orleans.
well, the,
But
be-
we could never go.
the best what appealed to me with that place is back then it was like no Wi-Fi, no one calling. It's like you leave everything in the safe, like in a
Yeah.
hotel. Like you don't even take your phone with you. It's like just go there and then just interact with people.
I love
Real,
it, dude.
real
The food, oh, man.
interactions.
I bet the food and the music and everything down there was amazing. Oh, that's so cool. I love that. I would love to go. For a little while during Obama administration, they actually opened it up to go, and then Trump came in and closed it off. So anyway. All right. Next up, what is your favorite design tool that is not Wix?
I like Canva for simplicity
Okay. Yeah.
recently. And not maybe like to go and crazily design something, but to come up with some concept ideas. I think Canva is often open in my browser.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's cool. Yeah, I think, was it Figma Buzz? They started a new thing, they announced it a couple weeks ago, where it does like a similar thing to Canvas. So it's kind of interesting to see like what happens with Figma and how that whole dynamic Figma versus Canva thing plays out. But yeah, Canva's a cool tool, man. My wife uses it a lot, and she's actually a designer, but she uses it for making like flyers and stuff for like school events or Cub Scouts and things like that. And it's great, dude. I love it. I'm actually really impressed with it. All right, Maciej, that's it, man. This was a fantastic conversation. I learned a lot. Thank you for coming on. I think it's so important for designers out there who are thinking about going to freelance to realize that it's not all on them. There are tools out there they can offload, they can specialize in those tools and use that as a selling point, just like you've done with Wix. And I think that's amazing. That's an amazing business model. Super smart way to do it. I really appreciate you coming on. Before we get out of here, tell everybody where they can find you, give yourself, vision marketing, all that stuff a plug.
Yeah, so the website, obviously, it's vismarketing.co.uk. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. All the links will be on the website. So yeah.
Right on. Awesome. And we will include all of that in the show notes. Check it out at beyonduxdesign.com. Maciej, thanks so much for coming on again, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.